Hello and a very warm welcome to everyone from CRED. We are very excited to bring to you a series of finance webinars every Saturday featuring an expert and thought leader in the space of finance, taxation, investments, and all things money. Do you think you can make investment decisions alone? Believe it or not, your deep seated mental biases are always at work. So, today we have with us Kalpen Parekh to shed light on the biases of investors and the psychology of investments so we can learn the tactics to cultivate a true investor's mindset. Post your questions in the chat box and we'll get Kalpen to answer them towards the end of the session. Stay tuned and make the most of it. Kalpen, a very warm welcome to you and over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is a very interesting topic, and in fact, it is said that investing is easy but very difficult because we all know what it takes to be a good investor, but it's very difficult to really execute that. And it's very similar to we asking someone that if I want to lose weight, what do I do? The rules are very simple. They are eat healthy, sleep well, breathe well, lead a simple life. We all know this. We don't need any session to attend to get answers to this. And likewise, in investing also, the rules are very simple. But yet, 99% of people who have money are not able to make that money grow at a healthy rate of growth. And primarily, it's purely because what Ankita highlighted, that we are never alone in our investing. Our biases, which have been a part of the human race right from our evolution, play a role. And once we learn these biases, once we recognize what does not work, if we are able to solve by having some hacks, having some quick formulas, formulae to really overcome these biases, it can help us becoming better investors. So I'll try and share some experiences that I have picked up over time from people around me, and hopefully all of you take advantage of that. So just give me a minute. I will just move to screen share. Please, if you can confirm, Ankita, if the screen is visible, and then I'll start.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. So while I talk for the next 35-40 minutes, do keep putting questions on the chat box, because that will be more useful and valuable once the session is over. Yeah. So investing is not easy. I highlighted it's hard. From a macroeconomic environment that we are in right now, we all must be surprised, right, that we are facing one of the biggest health crises ever that mankind has seen. We are facing one of the biggest economic crises that we've not witnessed in the last 100 years. Yet, all asset classes are booming as if all is well, more than well. And that's very unusual. And that's very unusual because, from a big macro perspective, the tap from which all the money flows around the world and which determines the cost of money, the price of money, the value of money, which is, the biggest market, the biggest economy of the world, which is USA, their Reserve Bank has, made this big framework that we are there to support asset classes and markets and do whatever it takes. And this experiment, this monetary experiment, has been going on for the last decade now, and it got accelerated. So whatever central banks did in the last 10 years, they actually did in the next, in just 4 to 6 weeks after the impact of COVID started being felt last year in March and April. And it was not just the central bank in US, but central banks around the world. So this is a very technical reason that I'm putting across, that a lot of things that we have learned in investing, in textbooks, in traditional finance, in traditional money management, is currently getting challenged, and I hope temporarily and not permanently, because otherwise textbooks will have to be rewritten in terms of how does one deal with money. So purely because of the cost of money moving to zero, asset classes around the world are getting priced irrationally, and cost of money being zero is as good as gravity becoming zero. So just imagine if gravitational force on Earth, which is 9.814, if that starts tending towards zero, all of us would start floating. And the same is happening today with markets. So with that big macro backdrop, everything else that I talk of now will be about us, our own behavior, our own mindset, and how do we overcome them to manage money differently. So while investing is hard, investing is also very, very personal. So remember that the investing solutions for each one of us cannot be the same. They are all different because each one of us has very different needs, very different temperament, very different context in our life, and very different value of money. Different people value money very differently. So I want to just draw back on this example. This is KBC. Anupa Das was in the last round, and this was the last question which Amitabh had posed to her, and she had already won 1 crore. So now this question, the answer to this question would determine whether she goes home with the 1 crore that she has, or she goes home with 7 crores. And the question was as follows: that in one day international cricket, which team have Riaz Poonawalla and Shaukat Dukanwala represented? Now, any of you could answer it in the chat box, and I will separately then later on look whether your answers were right or wrong. But depending on who are you as an individual, you would have taken a decision whether you want to, take the challenge to go for 7 crores, go right and win 7 crores, go wrong and lose 1 crore. So decision making in investing in the real world is always not just about markets, about asset classes, about interest rates, economy, and what is going on in the environment outside. It is also about who are we, what is our context, and what is our environment. Now, all of you may not know, but this lady, after, and she comes from very, very average background and roots. Money was very important to her. Her biggest motivation to participate in KBC was treatment for her mother's cancer. So, they were going through a lot of expenses. So for her, all that mattered was a very basic lifestyle, education for her kids, and taking care of her mother's health. So it was not about how to maximize money, but whatever is in hand to preserve that. And 1 crore for a lot of people like us is a very large amount. So she took a call, and she was 50% sure of, or she was probably reasonably sure about the answer, but not 100% sure. And what did she do? She actually backed out. She said, I don't want to take that chance. I broadly know the answer, but I don't want to take chance and lose that 1 crore. And then after the program got over, Amitabh asked her that what was your answer, and her answer was United Arab Emirates, and her answer was actually right. Now she could have won the entire 7 crore, but did she regret? No, she did not regret, because she said that for me, losing 1 crore would have been a far bigger regret than earning 7 crores. And with this example, what I'm trying to highlight to you is everyone's investment context is personal, unique, and very different. So just keep that in mind, and that should determine how should your investment really look like. More often, what we have seen, what I have personally observed is a lot of people, a lot of investors, ask questions to others and say, okay, tell me, how should I invest my 100 rupees? And whatever is the answer, we try to mirror that. We try to copy paste that. We believe that if someone else who is an expert or so-called expert or, an influential person, and if he's investing like this and he has made money recently, let me copy paste that template. And I think that is a big mistake, that our psychology of constantly looking for expertise, looking for getting influenced by expert bias can hurt our investment outcomes. So just keep this context in mind, that investing is very personal. I'll give you my own example, and during the course I will highlight some of my own investing experiences. But for example, I having spent 22 years in markets, I started my career in '99 when India's and globally technology as a sector was booming, very similar to today. But of course, today the context is very different. And then within the next 12 months, I saw all tech stocks losing 80 to 90% in value. So that experience made me a very conservative investor all through my journey, which also meant that I did not make as much money as the next man, in my own company, or the next person managing money in my company. But my context was different. My shaping of my early experiences were different. So keeping these things in mind, let's move ahead. Investing is not just hard, not just personal, but investing is also lengthy. Real investing, real money is made over periods of time. And we all know, when we talk about the concept of compounding, the most important formula of investing, the most important source of wealth creation is the formula of compounding that we have learned in our school, which is which is amount, which is what will be our wealth over a period of time, is equal to the money that we invest today, the amount of return that we would make on that money raised to the power of time. For how long will we keep that money will determine what is the final value of this A. Now, most often we give a lot of weightage to this percentage. What is the rate of return that I will make? And it's very obvious that again psychology again drives us to get greedy and constantly look at returns. So right now, if we are reading in newspapers and everywhere that so and so asset class is giving 100%, 200%, 5 times, 7 times return, then that becomes a narrative that provokes us to pay attention to that asset class, or maybe even put money in that asset class. So if Nasdaq does very well, if Tesla stock does very well, then attention shifts towards that. So I'm not saying that that's good or bad, but just because something is giving the best returns is not necessarily the right investment for us. What is more important is how much time do we let our money compound. And when I highlight, if you can see this picture on the left hand side, what this shows, these are some of the iconic money managers in the world. I'm sure there are enough names in India also, but unfortunately in India, the observable track records of money managers are not very long, because history of investing is only 20, 25 years. But in the US markets, history of investing is 60 to 80 years long. So there is data and track record to actually analyze and talk about. You see all these money managers, these are the time horizons for which they have compounded money. And the y-axis is the rate of return that they've generated over and above the S&P 500. So if S&P 500 gave X% return, how many people made X plus 5? So let's say over long periods of time, S&P 500 has given 10% return. These are all returns which are 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40% CAGR over 10, 15, 20, and all the way up to 55 years. So there are people like Walter Schloss, which 48-year history and has done around 7% more than S&P 500. So let's say in this period, if S&P 500 was 8 plus 7 is 15% dollar returns for 47 years is long history. The most iconic name we keep reading about is Warren Buffett. See the time horizon, almost 60. And this is a slightly dated picture. So today, the time horizon would have crossed around 60, 65 years. And the size of compounding is 12% over S&P. So S&P in his tenure has done around 9 to 10. He has done 10 plus 12. So 22% dollar returns over a 60-year period. Now that is wealth creation. So what I want to highlight here is, what will make our names come here is not necessarily the rate of return. It will be the time horizon. So if we want our name, then it's not difficult in a way, if we invest right with the right, principle, right discipline, right rules, and survive for long. The biggest rule of investing is survival. Just last. If we last in the game, it is magical. But to believe that it is magical takes time. And that's what this second picture here shows, that for a long period of time, we feel it's pointless because the actual amount does not take off till a certain tipping point comes. And once that tipping point comes, the numbers change magically. So as an example, I've just taken, let's say we start with 5 lakh rupees and we invested 9%. In 1 year, that becomes 5.45 lakhs. But the same number in 10 years moves, that 5 lakh goes to 11.8. So still not great. It's just, let's say, doubled. But the same number in 20 years goes to 66 lakhs. In 30 years goes to 66 lakhs. So compounding is all back-ended. And now, if we know that compounding is back-ended, it's very important that we last it there. It is also important that we delay our gratification and not focus on just spending money, very early in our careers, very early in our investing journey. We keep saving a lot. And as we go back to this formula, the formula has only 3 variables: how much we save, which is P, at what rate of return we save, and for how long we save. Now, remember, the most important point here, P and return are connected with a multiplication sign. But the variable time is connected with an exponential sign. And that's why the value of time in this whole game of investing is the most important. Where do I invest? How do I invest? All that becomes secondary. For how long do we invest becomes a very important driver. So keep in mind. Now, having established that time is so important in the journey of compounding, being patient is important, but almost impossible. Most people, so I'll give you some statistics. World over and even in India, the asset class which compounds, at better run rates than most other asset classes, or asset class which has drivers of better return. Businesses actually compound always at better rates of return. In a capitalistic world, if you are a good businessman, you're able to earn better rates of return on capital. So equity investing is nothing but investing in multiple businesses. So today, when we invest in a mixture of 50 companies, we are actually investing with 50 businesses run by able management, executing and building value over a period of time. However, the journey is never a straight line. The journey has lots of ups and downs in between, periods of positive returns, periods of negative return, and that is where investors are not able to really devote time. So the average holding period of most investors that we have observed is just around 3 to 4 years. And look at the irony. The names that we see here, the holding periods are minimum 15 to 20 years, and then the game really becomes very large. So just remember, we are up against very poor odds. We may have money which we have inherited, or our salaries or businesses are giving us money, but in investing, most people end up not making real compounding because time horizons are very short. People invest at the wrong point in time and get out at the wrong point in time. Average holding periods are just 3, 4, 5 years. When you put 5 years in the variable time, it actually makes no impact in your overall wealth. And so be aware that the odds are stacked against us. If you have to overcome these odds, what are the hacks that we need, and what are the things that we should be aware of? Now, why is it that if we know this reality, we all know this reality, that in the long term, a lot of compounding happens, progress happens, returns are very good, businesses grow over time, economies grow over time, India is a growing economy. So all these data points are useful, but yet investing is also volatile. So while in the long run, all is well, like a Hindi movie, in that movie, Shah Rukh Khan says that in the end, sab theek ho jata hai. But till the end, there are lots of ups and downs. The hero has to fight villains. The hero has to, take knocks on his face. The hero has to bounce back from the ground, from the dust, and fight back. And then eventually the movie ends. So in the end, all is well. But we need to stay till the end and be aware that in the middle there will be lots and lots of ups and downs. And I've just given you 3 examples here. You take the American market, a long period of 25 years between 1929 to 1954. The Dow Jones went nowhere. So if you had invested at the bottom in 1930, you would have made a lot of money. But if you were a bit unfortunate and just invested 1 year prior at the peak of a bubble in 1929, it took 25 years to get the capital back, because that's the inherent volatility in between. Go back to Japan. Again, whenever big bubbles are formed in any country, any economy, and any market, generally future returns are very poor. So it's very important to stay away from big bubbles, and there are some techniques and formula to be aware of that. So you look at Japan, almost now close to 30 years, it has still not crossed its peak. So let's say in the last 10 years, 2010, the Nikkei was 6,000, 7,000. Today it's 30,000. So it's gone up 5 times. But for someone who invested 30 years back, it's actually not recovered capital even today. Likewise, look at India coming closer home in the early decades between 92 after the Harshad Mehta scam and the bubble, and after that burst. From that day till 2004, if you see, the Sensex was almost flat. Intermittently, it went up and down, but over a long phase of 10, 12 years, it made no returns. So be aware. If you are aware that this is the nature of the beast, you will identify what are the rules of the game. Once you know what is the game, if you know that the game is cricket, then you can be prepared how to play the bouncer, how to play spinners, how to play difficult bowlers, and navigate. But if you know that the game is cricket, but you go with a football mindset, obviously we will fail. So knowing these important perspectives of the game are very important, and which I'm just repeating, while investing is simple, it is unique to us. It is all about time horizons. It is extremely enriching in the long term, but it is extremely volatile in the medium term. So now one can say that if it is volatile, let me not invest. But if we don't invest, then you lose out on the long-term compounding. You lose out on the inflation-beating power of good investments and not let capital really compound. We end up remaining poorer because every year inflation is taking away 5% of our capital purely by loss of purchasing power. So it is important to invest. It is also important to embrace the volatility that comes in the game. Why do most investors, why are they not able to navigate volatility? Because they are not aware of volatility. They only see one side of the coin. that in the long run money is always made. So if I would have told you that in the long term equities will make 12% return, and just say that come and give me your money, it is easy for you to do that. But once you lose 10 or 20% in a year, is when you stop trusting that asset class. You lose faith in that asset class, and the moment there is loss of faith, time horizon gets curtailed and people get out. So just be aware of volatility. Don't be scared by it. Being aware is very important. Now let's go back to some of the investing giants and learn from their principles. How do you avoid this volatility? Temporary volatility is absolutely fine. It actually becomes our friend. It can help us in taking advantage of lower prices whenever once in few years we get, and make our portfolios better. But how do you avoid permanent volatility? So there are two things which can create permanent risk to our capital. One, if we buy the wrong product, the wrong asset class, the wrong company, the wrong business, or the wrong mutual fund. If the underlying is bad, you can't do anything about it. Even if you stay invested for a long period of time, it won't help, because you are in a bad company. If you are in a bad sector, if you are in a company where the promoters, the management are not aligned to our interests, are not capable enough to navigate volatility, then there is no reason why our capital should earn any return back on it. That capital will actually go waste. So Warren Buffett's partner Charlie Munger always starts by saying that whenever I get 20 investment choices and 99% of them I almost reject, my first filter to evaluate is I always ask this question or this philosophy: tell me where will I die, so I never go there. And if I never go there, most likely I will not die, and hence I will be immortal. So this is a very anecdotal way of saying how can we bring immortality or risk reduction to our capital, to our investing. Which means ask this question. Don't ask this question, how can I make money or what companies make money? Invert and ask the question, what companies lose capital? What are the businesses that do not survive? Now, data shows that 90% businesses don't survive beyond 30 years. Data shows that 50% of businesses almost every 5 years, give poorer returns. Data also shows that only 4% businesses, in global world markets over the last 70, 80 years, only 4% businesses have generated superior returns over fixed deposits or over, money market instruments, which means 96% businesses don't generate enough wealth. So the question to ask is, what are the characteristics of these 96%? Why do they not make money? Now, the characteristics are, they are bad businesses in the first place. They are not the right promoters in the first place. They don't have the right intention. They don't have the right execution capability, and all of this can be actually measured, analyzed, and solved for. We do that day in and day out when we build portfolios. If you are buying stocks, you need to do that homework. And are you buying these stocks because the stock price has run up in the last 1 year, or because the business is fundamentally solid and you know that over the next 5 and 10 years it will grow? It is in the right hands, because end of the day we are giving our hard-earned money to these promoters to run their business. So what is their integrity? What is their professional skill set? What is their intent in the first place? Is their intent to make money off us or with us? So managements which think with us are the ones which have actually survived and created shareholder wealth. So keep this in mind. Understand the risk of investing. The second risk in investing. So I highlighted that there are two ways you can lose capital. You buy the wrong business, or you buy a decent business, good business at the wrong price. So for example, today, if you were to go to, a new iPhone is launched at a right price of around 80,000 rupees. But there are two shops, or there are three shops. One is selling it at 80,000 rupees, but let's say for this week, that shop is shut. And there are two shops that open up next to it. One sells it at 1 lakh rupee, and one, so the main shop is shut, and there is a temporary opening for 7 days where they are selling at 1 lakh rupee just because of shortage, just because of scarcity, just because this shop shut for a few days. Will you go and buy? So when you know that this instrument is worth 80,000, but you are overpaying for it, it's a wrong investment decision. Because you're paying more than what is the value of that product. Likewise, in investing, when we overpay for a company, our future returns actually get impacted because of that. On the other hand, if for some reason there is another shop which opens up and is doing a clearance sale and is offering the same iPhone at 70,000 rupees, then it makes sense, because something worth 80, you're buying it at 70 with a reasonable margin of safety. So this is a principle that Ben Graham, who was Warren Buffett's teacher, he highlighted that when you buy stocks, buy them the way we buy groceries, not the way we buy perfumes. Because when we buy perfumes, we overpay. We don't bother about price. We don't negotiate. We just go with the tag, the label. We don't mind paying a premium. We feel paying a premium makes the product superior. But when we go and buy groceries, we negotiate hard for the last 5, 10, 20 rupees. In investing, keeping in mind what price we are paying is very important. Keeping in mind what is the quality of business we are buying is very important. So these are the two important things to be aware of, more so in today's world when everything is running up and it creates an illusion that whatever we have bought is the right investment to make. The next important thing is to understand value of the asset class, not the price alone. So today one says that Sensex is 50,000. Now 50,000 is cheap or expensive. The number 50,000 means nothing. In isolation, it does not convey whether the value of Sensex is 50,000 or not. And here is a concept called price to earning that we need to be aware of. So this was the recent Suez Canal deadlock which had happened, and a lot of memes were made. So one of the memes that we felt was relevant for our markets today is that the earnings of corporate India are still growing at a very slow rate, but the price to earning has got expanded at a very fast rate because a lot of liquidity, zero interest rates world over, a lot of money chasing limited number of good quality stocks, and valuations have run up. And let me give you an example of what does valuation mean. So I'll give you two examples of a year where you had large swings in valuation, and they were characterized by bubbles and then a sharp collapse in stock markets. So 2008, which was the global financial crisis, and that affected every market in the world, including India. In Jan 2008, beginning of the year, the stock market, which is Nifty or Sensex, was valued at 28 times. So 1 rupee of earning, the market was willing to pay 28 rupees for 1 rupee of earning. So if you were to earn 1 rupee in a business, the market was saying, I'm willing to pay you for 8 years of future earning and buy you. Since that day till today, Nifty returns are 7%. Almost 13 years have passed. So long periods of time, but only 7% return. And this is the return which you would have earned maybe in a simple debt fund as well, without any volatility or any risk. Because companies have grown in these 13 years, but they've grown at a slow rate of profits, and market overpaid in the month of Jan. In the same year, after the GFC collapse, the same valuation went down to 11 times. So Nifty, Sensex, or equity market as a whole in India generally operates in a range of 10 times at cheaper valuation, and on the higher side, it is around 30, 35 times. Roughly, that's the range. So it came down to 11 times. 11 times is price to earning ratio. Since that day till today, so only 7 months had gone in January, from January. And if you had invested 7 months late at 11 PE, the return since that day till today is 15% CAGR per annum. So just see the gap. If you overpay in the same asset class, returns are lesser or higher. Come back to 2020, the year which was again, very eventful last year. Again, everything was rising till January, February before COVID news started coming in, and markets were at almost 29 times PE in January 2020. If I had invested then, since then till today, which is around 14 months have gone, the returns made were 17%. In 2 months, after the COVID attack and the lockdowns everywhere, markets crashed. We all remember in March, markets crashed, and they came down to 17 times multiple. From 17 times, the returns for the same Nifty has been 92%. So cheaper valuations generate higher returns. Expensive valuations generate inferior returns. Just keep this formula in mind, and you can read up a lot about how to value businesses, how to understand valuations of asset classes, markets, and various things as a part of your investment toolkit to not go wrong on the price that you pay for your asset class. Where are we today as we speak in March or April today? We are now, sorry, there is an error here. We are at we are at around 35 times as we speak today in terms of valuation. It's not 39, it's around 35. So markets are still expensive, and which is why it's very important that you invest with caution and with prudence. The next point that I want to highlight, so I was highlighting that this is the range. So if you see the band here, the top graph here, it shows over the last 22 years the range of valuations for Nifty. So at its low, this is around 10 times. 10 times is the bottom. And generally, if you notice from the bottom, the returns are reasonably rich, 15%, 18%, 16%. And it's not just the percentages, they are returns for such a long period of time. 15% return for almost 21 years had we invested at valuation lows in 2000. 18.3% return had we invested in 2003 market lows. Likewise, 2009 valuation lows, the return since then till date is 16.2. On the other hand, if we had invested at market highs, valuations returns would have been lower. So from 2000 peak till date, the return is 12%. From 2007 peak till date, the return is 8%. One can argue that, but why is it different this time? It's 18.8 from the peak 1 year back, 1.5 year back. The reason being, right now, like I showed in the first slide, at zero interest rates, all asset classes are right now, going through the roof. Now, whether this will continue for long or not, I don't know. But I would be a bit skeptical to say that at such valuations, earning 15-20% return is less likely. Earning returns closer to 10% is more likely. So just be aware of this whole concept of, where are we in the cycle, and what price are we paying. So being aware of this is very important in our investing. Now, having said that, like I highlighted, asset classes are expensive right now. They are not cheap. So what do you do? How do you really, put your 100 rupees to work? And here I want to bring another dimension which helps in mixing asset classes and reducing volatility. I go back to a concept in chemistry where and a concept in nature. I'm showing the world map here. There are two parts. One is the eastern part of the map, the Asian region, and then the second one is the other side, which is South America and somewhere Central America. And I have highlighted two places distinctly, blue color and red color. The blue color is copper. These are the places where copper is mined and extracted, and the red one is tin. So they are both available in very opposite extremes of the world. They are not close to each other. So by nature, they are far away from each other. Now, there is a concept called measure of hardness in chemistry. What is the hardness of any element? So the range is 1 and 10, in terms of extreme. Diamond is the hardest material. It has the highest measure of hardness, and the number for diamond is 10. On the other hand, baby powder is the softest material, and its measure is 1. So these are the extremes. Tin and copper are at 1.5 and 3. So that's the measure of hardness of these two these two elements. When you blend them together, 1.5 and 3, the actual measure of hardness should become the average of 1.5 and 3. And 1.5 and 3, when you average it mathematically, that number will come to somewhere around 2.25. However, when we blend both of these together in a chemical factory, the new metal which gets created is bronze, and its measure of hardness is not 2.25, it's actually 6. So by mixing two opposite diverse elements together, you are able to create a third element, which is magically a stronger element than the individual elements. And that is a concept of asset allocation, that you mix asset classes in such a way that the combination of these asset classes can actually be better than the individuality of each asset class. How do we apply this principle in investing? In investing, when we blend, I have taken 4 asset classes right now, which are easily accessible to investors like you and me. One is, so I have taken fixed income represented by CRISIL short-term bond index as a proxy. I have taken gold as another asset class. Nifty is a representation of equity and buying businesses. And S&P 500 is a representative of investing globally. So again, buying businesses in, let's say, the largest market of the world, which is US. You can replace this with all country world index if you want global diversification across the world. When you blend these 4 asset classes, so what I've shown here is, I'm trying to, let's say if there is an investor who says, I don't know the future, I don't know whether debt will do well, gold will do well, equity will do well, or US markets will do well. But if I equally mix them together, like we did in the earlier experiment, if I just mix all of them in equal ratio, what would the performance look like? Now, what is important in this picture here is, if you see the top line, the return which is the highest belongs to Indian market, 16.1. But that is also because we started at a very low point in 2000. These returns would be probably 10% only if I take it for the last decade. But because we started at low valuation point, it's 16.1. So, but for the highest return that Nifty has given, see the volatility. It runs up very sharply, falls very sharply, again runs up sharply, falls very sharply. So investors who have temperament to accept this volatility don't need to bother about asset allocation. They can just invest and forget. But most of us in the real world don't have that temperament. We get unnerved with volatility. Now, which is the lowest asset class? 7.4 in terms of returns. But that is also the most conservative and the most steady asset class, which is this blue line here. If you notice, it's like a straight line. You don't have to worry at all what is going to happen tomorrow, because this is fixed income. This is the proxy of fixed deposits. Every year we will earn 7, 8, 9%, depending on whatever are prevailing interest rates. So one is a very conservative asset class, but low return. One is a very aggressive, volatile asset class, but very high return. We have blended these four asset classes together, and the average of these four, actually mathematical average, would have been 11.3%, 11.2 or 11.3, when you add these four mathematically and take an average. When you blend all four together, you're actually getting 12.7, which is higher than the average. So mathematically, what would have been 11.2, when you mix these four asset classes and rebalance every year back to 25% each, it gives you 1.5% more than the average. And 1.5% more is a very big number when you compound it over a 20-year period. It's a very, very large number. But more importantly, it is not about just earning 12.7. This green, the yellow line here, which is the third line. One second. So the yellow line here is a far more steady line, which has given the second best return. So the highest return is 16.1 with the highest volatility. The second best return is 12.7, which is a combination of all these portfolios. So this is one way in which we can curtail volatility. The moment volatility is curtailed, which is the light yellow line that you can see, it cruises very smoothly. If you observe, even in 2020 here, when markets fell by 40%, this yellow line barely fall, because two things helped it. Fixed income returns went up, gold returns went up, and in that phase, the mixture portfolio, the I don't know fund, actually fell much lesser. And if it fell much lesser, it would have given us confidence to stay invested and not get out. Otherwise, in equity, a lot of people would get out when NAVs keep fluctuating like this. So keep this thought in mind. Asset allocation is a very important idea to reduce volatility. The next point that I want to highlight is in investing, we try to, and in today's digitally connected world, we try to talk to many people and collect data and information. And we feel that excess information means superior decision making. On the contrary, excess information confuses us and derails us from our investment outcomes. If you want to come to Mumbai, you land in Mumbai and you want to go to BKC, to Trident Hotel, for example, and you have two choices. You have Google Maps on your mobile, and you have a very detailed map of the local municipal corporation. Now, the second map, if you notice, has a lot more information, is more granular. Will tell you more variables than the first map. The first map is minimal, but gives you things that matter. That what are the three routes, and in how much time will you reach there? And what do we use? We use the Google Maps. So what is important in investing? Another hack for you to ensure that you are able to navigate volatility, you are able to stay invested for a long period of time, is to have your Google Maps in place, your principles in place, having good advisors in place. It's very important that you have the right coach, the right advisor to help you take right decisions. Because see, there are options today. You can go to Google and search that how can I be a better investor? But will that help you become a better investor? It will give you 500 links that, okay, do this, do that. It will confuse you. So unless you are really skilled at this game, don't just rely on information, rely on an expert who will guide you how to join these dots and take the right decisions. Now, I'm just summarizing some of the key points about buying good businesses, understanding where are we in the cycle, not overpaying, having margin of safety, keeping valuations in mind into a very simple framework. So for an investor, there are two choices: debt and equity. Like I highlighted, the valuation range that you should keep in mind for price to earning is 10 times to 30 times. Where are we today? We are closer to 30 times right now. Normally, we advise investors that when markets are expensive, very frothy, stick to conservative equity products, hybrid equity products, or more of fixed income rather than more of equities. Equities make a lot more sense when markets are cheaper, valuations are cheaper. You are in a crisis and prices are very cheap. So when valuations are in the 10 to 15 bucket, normally choose more aggressive products in your overall portfolio. When valuations are on the other extreme, as we are today, choose relatively more conservative products. So I'm just giving you a very thumb rule for you for your decision making. Likewise, in fixed income, the margin of safety is noted through a variable called interest rates. Interest rates in India fluctuate between 6% to 9%. When rates are high, they go up to 9%. When they are low, they come down to 6%. Today, in fact, fixed deposit rates have fallen below 6 also. Now, when rates are closer to its low, where we are right now, your investments in fixed income should be in shorter duration instruments. When rates are high, your investment in fixed income should be in higher duration instruments, so that you don't take so you take advantage of higher interest rates. When rates are low, duration should be low. When rates are high, duration should be high. So keep that framework in mind. Uh, Having gone through all of this, if you were to say that, okay, what does this mean? So the idea is not to just give you good English, but like Nassim Taleb has said very nicely, don't tell me your view, show me what your portfolio is. I'm just trying to highlight a very simple framework, how I apply this to my own 100 rupees that I have. 100 rupees are distributed as 45% in equity funds which invest in Indian companies, 20% distributed to combination of gold and natural resources companies, and these companies are not available in India extensively, so they are largely international funds. So it also takes care of international diversification, which is important for creating lower correlation, lower volatility portfolio. So I have around 20% in global funds and energy funds, which are cheap because in the last 1 year, energy prices have come down a lot compared to other sectors which are on its peak right now. And the third bucket is fixed income. Roughly one third of that is in short-term debt funds. Why short-term debt funds? Why not long-term debt funds? Because like I highlighted, interest rates are low right now, so you prefer to be on the shorter end. Now, what I have highlighted in three different colors, green, red, and blue, 45% of the portfolio, if I look at the last 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year return, the returns look very good. So my bias would have been that let me put all 100% in what is looking very good. But that's not the right framework to invest again. Our portfolio should also have something which is not done very well, which is why it's available cheap, but which has drivers to do well in the future. So 20% of the portfolio is in those type of strategies where the last 5 year, 10 year returns are not the best. They are actually inferior. But maybe there are some turning points. Now, being in a mutual fund, I know some of these turning points, but for you to judge them, either you study yourself or you have a good advisor to help you. But be aware of that your portfolio should never be only about what has done very well in the last 5 years. It should be a mix of what is also likely to do well in the future and which may have not done well as of today. And another one third, which is in debt, will generally be always middle of path because debt does not have that type of volatility. It will continue to give steady performance. Never the highest, never the lowest. Debt allows you to sleep well at night. Now, whether your exposure should be 35, 25, 0 is completely your context. Remember, why is the portfolio looking like this? Because the future is more unpredictable today than ever in the past because of a lot of money chasing asset classes everywhere. Hence, diversify well. And remember, slide number 2, not slide 1, a small error, where I had highlighted that investment is personal. So you don't have to necessarily assume this is the best formula. Design the formula that you think is the best for yourself, for your risk appetite, and your time horizons that you have, and that will really help you build a durable investment framework. So applying these principles into investing will really help you become long-term investors, take the benefit of compounding that asset classes world over offer. Like I said, time is important. What derails our journey in terms of time is volatility. What while even though we are aware of volatility, why are we not able to overcome? Because we have biases. That is the outcome of psychology, how our mind thinks. Our mind does not like volatility. Our mind likes to chase past performance. Our mind will like asset classes which are running up a lot like a bubble, but they may not make money, but yet we like to chase them. So we have lots of biases in our mind. And while we try to explain these biases to you in a rational way, the rational messaging does not deeply influence human beings because human beings also like emotions, they like stories. And to help you do that, I've just kept one picture here, which is my last slide. There is a program called, there is a series of 8 short 6 to 8 minute videos called Break the Bias, where we have used the medium of humor to highlight various principles of bad investing and how can we overcome them. So I would urge all of you, if you want to deep dive a little bit more in this journey of investing psychology, in this journey of behavioral biases that make us bad investors and how to overcome them, do spend your time going through these 7-8 videos. The whole idea of highlighting this to you is while I have tried to explain these biases in a slightly boring way, if you want to learn it in an interesting way, these short videos will help you do that, and hopefully help you become better investors and make more money over a long period of time. So with that, thank you very much for being patient and listening to me, and all the best. Back to you, Ankita. I'll stop the screen share and we'll take questions.
Thanks, Kalpen. Kalpen, I've put the questions in the chat box. You can
Sure.
see them there.
Okay. So the example I had highlighted for that KBC winner, some of you have answered it right, which is UAE. Some of you have answered it wrong. But just imagine, I'm relating it back that if you had answered it wrong and lost that 1 crore, it would have created regret for life. So in investing, behaviorally, regret minimization is very important. I may be owning a conservative asset class and something else runs up a lot. So today, for example, Bitcoin is giving 600% return. I don't understand it. Do I regret not understanding it? Yes. I wish I could understand it and spend time and study. But do I regret not making that six times return? No, because I don't know what else can happen if it goes wrong. So just be aware of that as investors. I'll start with questions: how to avoid following the crowd and build conviction on money and investment decisions. So this is a question by Jitendra. And then, the only way to avoid following the crowd is to first understand the rules at the core level. What are the first principles of investing? And like I highlighted, time horizon is important. Knowing that asset classes are volatile is important. The drivers of volatility are bad business and expensive prices. So if you can understand how to identify good businesses and how to understand the pricing, the valuations, these two simple concepts, you will yourself start realizing what is making sense and what is not making sense. Read about it, talk to people who can guide you selflessly in terms of understanding these concepts. There is enough available today digitally. A lot of these courses are available, in fact, free of cost. And I'm not saying take it because they are free of cost, but even if you have to pay something to learn these principles, it's worthwhile because it will make a huge difference to your final corpus, final wealth 20, 30 years from now. Or even identify some good advisors. There are enough, successful investment advisors in the industry who you can partner with, who you can learn with in the journey. There is a cost of good advice. The cost may be 0.5 or 0.75% of your portfolio, but it may be worthwhile if it can add 3, 4, 5% to your overall portfolio. So that's how you learn. Once you learn, then you start taking independent decisions. Then you start realizing that are you being a part of the crowd or are you being different? And sometimes being a part of the crowd also helps. So it's not necessarily important that you stay away from the crowd all points in time. There are times when the crowd is right. In fact, more often the crowd is right these days. So it's important to have a blend of these frameworks. But how do you reach there will come with a lot of effort to learn, to study, to deep dive with an open mind, and read this book called The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli. A very simple book. You will probably finish it in 2 days, and it tells you how we get trapped in our decision making by our own biases. So there are some 100 biases that he talks about in a very simple language. So I would urge all of you to read that if you like reading and have time. The next question is, as we have large resources on internet, teaching about investment and money with many have conflicting opinions. How to identify unbiased learning resources? So again, like I said, this will come with experience. This will come only with observation. This will come with knowing that who is giving you genuine advice. What is his incentive? So the question you should ask is, today, if let's say Kalpen Parekh is talking to you and giving you some advice. I represent DSP mutual fund. So my interest first will be DSP. So always ask this question: that what is the vested interest this person may have? Is he candid? Is he having skin in the game to ensure that my money also grows the right way? Is he applying the same principles in his own portfolio? So I always tell our friends and people like you that ask your advisor, show me what is your portfolio. How are you applying these principles in your own money management? So that's how you will gradually realize who are good advisors and who are not. And I think once you meet few of them, you automatically start getting a sense of it. So that's very important, because also, like I highlighted, when there is so much of data available, it can confuse you, and more data is not important. The right data is important. The right advisors are important. So that is very important. Saurav's question: why should I invest in debt funds rather than safely investing in NSE, where I get almost the same returns? So of course, even NSE makes a lot of sense. Any debt, instrument, whether it is PPF, whether it is our employees provident fund, our variable provident fund, or debt mutual fund, combination of these matter. My bias, my preference for debt mutual fund is because what happens is these are all fixed rate instruments. So they'll give you 7%, 8%, 6%, depending on what the prevailing rate is, and the money gets locked for a long period of time. Since I have been in this business for 22 years now, and I started my first investment in a debt fund itself in 98, 99. Since then till now, my experience has been, debt funds allow you to capture these interest rate cycles. So when rates are very high, it elongates the portfolio duration. When rates are very low, it reduces it. And by this active management, there is a high probability of earning between 1 to 1.5 or 2% more than these predetermined fixed rate instruments. And over a long period of time, if you can get even that half or 1% extra, it adds to your compounding. Now, at large, to most people who don't understand fixed income cycles, interest rate volatility, I would say stick to these instruments if they are tax free for you. But after a certain threshold, these instruments are also not tax free. Debt funds have this beautiful advantage of indexation, where after 3 years, if your investment horizon is 3 years and above, your capital gains tax rate is much lower. So today, as an employee, my tax slab is 35%. If I invest in a fixed deposit or any of these instruments, my tax rates will be higher, and there is a limit to how much I can invest. But when I invest in a debt fund, my effective tax rate drops to 5% or 7%. And in years when inflation in India has been very high, the effective tax rate actually drops to zero. So debt funds allow me to actively play interest rate cycles. It allows me to take advantage of effective taxation because of indexation. And third, they are liquid. I can take money back in 24 hours. I can take my money out whenever I want. Some of these instruments have 5 year, 7 year, 10 year, 15 year lock-ins. So there are pros and cons for each of them. These instruments benefit is they give you a standard rate of return, fixed rate, come what may, you will get that rate of return. Debt funds, returns will fluctuate. But if for that fluctuation, they can give you slightly more, for me, it is worthwhile, and hence I take that call. Then the next question is from Sitendu. If we talk value and long term, is it good to select some good stock and stay on 10, 15 years? I think so. Yeah, if you can identify good stocks, stay with them till the time the company continues to execute and deliver on good execution and keep growing its profitability until the time the price does not become a bubble. So Infosys, for example, one of the most iconic companies which gave prominence to India in the year 2000. But the valuations went to some 100 times. And 2000 to 2010, profits kept on growing at 40, 50%. Great, that is great profitability. But the stock price went nowhere. For almost 8 to 10 years, the stock made zero returns. Likewise, Hindustan Lever between 2002 to 2007, 8 again for 6, 7 years gave zero returns because the stock became very expensive. So great company, world-class business, great management, everything right. So the business was right, the price was not right. So if you can learn these concepts of the right business at the right price, and then stay with them for long periods of time, clearly, it works. Now, whether it is called coffee can or whatever, I'm not getting into labeling because coffee can also has its pitfalls. If you don't get the valuation right, like I highlighted, great companies at very high prices can be poor stocks. They actually can bring down your return. So being aware of that is very important. Keep that in mind and give time. Now, whether it should be 10 years, 3 years, or 30 years is a function of what is the quality of that company. If the company is like HDFC Bank, which is delivering every year, you continue with it. You revisit your thesis every year, see how the management is executing, how their business is progressing, how their margins are moving, how their ROEs are moving, and then take a call. If they see a deterioration, structural deterioration, you can get out. If not, you can continue. So that's the beauty of buying other businesses through stocks or through funds, where you can get out tomorrow. Today, if the management of HDFC Bank wants to get out of banking, they can't do it, right? Or they want to get into a new bank, they can't do it. You and I can do that at the click of a button. We can move from banking to pharma to healthcare to metals to gas to energy in any business, because markets and the liquidity in markets allow us to do that. And that's the advantage of liquid investing through direct purchase of stocks or funds. Gaurav's question, debt today is at lowest interest, equity at highest P. So should we look for another asset class? It's a brilliant question, Gaurav. I don't have an answer. It is a reality that interest rates are low. It is also a reality that valuations are high. What do I do about it? I don't have a choice. I don't want to get out of long-term compounding of businesses, so I don't want to be zero in equity. Hence, I highlighted that 45 rupees is in equities, but I also have 15 rupees in equity of companies where valuations are low. So metal companies, energy companies, gas companies, some of these have, over the last 5 years, actually underperformed the rest of the market. So their valuations are far lower than the valuations of other part of the market. So when Nifty is at 35p, some of these companies are at 10 and 15p. So they are cheaper. But why are they cheaper? Because their business is going through a bad cycle. Their balance sheets are stretched. So here you have to take a call, whether are you likely to see an improvement. So which is why some part of my portfolio is in those type of companies, and then some part of the portfolio is in gold. Normally, I have never believed in gold. The only gold I had, all through my life was the wedding ring I had. Otherwise, never had gold. But only in the last 2-3 years, I've started adding gold because other asset classes have become very expensive. So you need to have some exposure to gold where supply is finite. And governments can't keep printing gold. They can't keep mining gold and create infinite gold. So when there is volatility in equity and fixed income, gold acts as your natural hedge. And that's where the whole concept of diversifying becomes important, which is what you have asked, that should we look for another asset class. Now, unfortunately, because of zero interest rates and infinite liquidity, trillions of dollars created by all central banks around the world, there is no asset class which is cheap. Almost all asset class, real estate, gold, land, stocks, bonds, everything is expensive. So you don't have a choice but to accept that the near term returns could be lesser and over a longer, so our time horizons have to get extended in this environment. What is Amrish's question? What's better investment considering the interest rates are getting lower and lower? Should it be ELSS or PF? So I highlighted this. See, PF is straight line. I think provident fund rates are between 7% to 8%, and these rates keep changing. The government has an option to bring it down or bring it up, but normally the rates are 7 to 8%. In PF, you have to lock your money for 15 years or minimum 5 years, and then keep it for another 10 years. And after 15 years, it still gives you around the same 7-8% tax-free return. ELSS, on the other hand, has volatility. It will fluctuate. Last year in March, ELSS NAV went down by 20%. Since March, the NAV has gone up by 90%. On an average, over 20 years, ELSS funds have delivered around 14% return. Next 15 years, they may not earn 14 because valuations are high. They may earn 10, but even that 10, or they may earn 9, even that 9 is 1 to 2% higher than a provident fund. So personally, my bias is for ELSS because I do know that in the long run, it makes better returns than a straight line provident fund. But I would still say that keeping in mind stocks are also very high right now. You split 50-50 in both. If that could be one way to take advantage of a straight line return and take advantage of higher returns that an equity linked savings scheme can give you. So both give you the same tax advantage. One will give you higher returns with higher volatility. If you can absorb that volatility, go ahead with that. Next question is, should you keep buying in when markets are falling and average your losses or have a stop loss? So see, as per rule, as per our own compliance, I invest only in mutual funds and only in DSP mutual funds, because when I preach to the world that you should invest in my funds, I cannot be investing in stocks directly or any other fund directly. So my investments are all in mutual funds. So I don't have this concept of stop loss. My preference always is that invest in good company, in a fund which is investing in good companies. And if the NAV falls, in a way it's good because you're getting the same long-term return at lower NAV today. I don't mind investing more when NAVs are lower. There is a concept that I encourage a lot of investors called asset allocation funds, which splits between equities and bonds. When equity prices fall, it increases the exposure to equity. When equity prices rise, it sells equity and increases the exposure to bonds, so that some amount of cushion can be created. It is meant for conservative investors who don't like very large fluctuations. So for my father, for example, who is retired, while his money is for long term, but his ability to take fluctuations is low, I recommend the asset allocation fund. For my son, who is 13 years old, who does not really look at markets anyways because he's not focused about it, I invest everything in equity. So with highest volatility, but over a period of time, highest return. So that's how I invest for him. So again, context. Context is different for father, context is different for son. And I'm somewhere in between because I have other goals. I have to buy a home. So that is why there is a large amount of fixed income in the portfolio. So that's how you take your call. Then the next question is, Mridul, when you say 10 to 15 rupees has been kept for low valuation companies as a fund manager, how do you arrive at a time horizon before which you will take your money out if stocks don't deliver? So yeah, we normally, when we make an investment decision, we keep in mind that this company should get around at least 18 months to 2 years. But we keep watching our data points from these companies and from the sector. So there are times when let's say we have bought a stock with a certain thesis, but the thesis takes longer to play out. And we don't mind that time saying that, yes, we went wrong. Because remember, you never go right 100% of time. The best of experts also go wrong. So as long as we get 6 or 7 calls out of 10 right, we are comfortable. So there are times we buy a company, we hope that, like let's say, you get into a telecom stock and you hope that this price war between telecom companies will come down. I'll give you a real life example. That, Bharti, Reliance, Vodafone, they are all in a price war to acquire customers. And because of price wars, all of them have seen collapse in profitability. But from 13 telecom companies 10 years back, today there are only 3 left. So now you start seeing consolidation. So we build a thesis that if consolidation happens and price start rising now, profitability will come back over the next 3 to 5 years. And it may be good to start accumulating some of these stocks. So we invest in one telecom company. And we watch every 3 months that are they increasing their average revenue per user. If the answer is yes, our thesis is right, hold on. But if somewhere the thesis breaks, that again a new price war starts and the ARPU increase which we were expecting stops happening or gets delayed a lot, then we take a call that, okay, maybe our thesis is not playing out. Let me sell this stock and buy something else. So you have to keep evaluating these changing data points and not be rigid about it. But to start with, give a 2 to 3 year time horizon to a company because fruits don't grow overnight, right? Or trees don't grow overnight. You sow a plant and you put your seeds, you water it. It takes at least a couple of years for a tree to grow and start giving fruits. So likewise in investing, generally, funds which have an average holding period of 5-6 years in a company they invest in tend to do much better. So that's what I would do. But we would get out of some stocks where we believe we have gone wrong. There are times we've made mistakes. We invested in a company and we misjudged the promoter. We misjudged the management. We didn't realize that his integrity is at doubt. And then as with experience, we realize that when that happens, even if the stock is down 80%, we get out of it. So remember one thing, there is no one who is perfect in investing. So errors do happen. As long as you minimize your errors, that's good enough. Then the next question is from Karthik. I had incurred huge losses because some people wrongly recommended me options trading product. And now what is the solution? How to recover the lost money? I think, see, this is, again, these things happen in bull markets when, everything is going up. I've also had friends. So I remember I have a friend once in a month when we would meet, so I would always say that invest in my boring mutual fund, invest in SIPs, in asset allocation. You'll make steady state long-term 10-12% return, which I'm happy with. She would always say that what you'll make over the long term, I make in a quarter. So, I have speed, you don't have speed. And at some point, she realized that money was going into options trading and whoever was investing on her behalf blew up the entire thing and the entire capital was lost. So you can't do, it's unfortunate. So wherever, you are getting returns which are unreasonable, which are unreal, which are irrational, remember it is coming out of some risk which is unknown and which is not sustainable. Something will go wrong. If you made money for a few months, it was out of luck, not out of skill. And the only way now, so you can't recover that money and you can't put new money back, taking the same risk to recover that money because then you're increasing your risk. So I think It is only with time and stable investing decisions. Let me also tell all of you what are the realistic rates of return one should expect. For last 1 year, you will see a lot of funds generating 60, 70, 80, 90% return. That's a wrong expectation. In the long run, fixed income should give the returns that interest rates have offered. So today, if interest rates are 6, 7%, your long-term returns from bonds should be 6, 7%. If return on equity of corporate India is around 11 to 12%, then that is the type of return that long-term equity returns will earn. Temporarily, some sector, some stock will give faster returns, but over long periods of time, returns will converge in this range. Be aware of that. If you want something significantly more than 11 and 12%, I don't know in today's expensive environment if that's possible. It could come only out of fluke or luck, or you set up a new business which transforms the market and you're able to generate significantly high rates of return on that. But at large, these are the boundary conditions. Be broadly aware of it. Don't chase greed. So that's all I can say, and I can empathize for the loss that you had in your options. But incrementally learn from this mistake and don't repeat that. Next question from Pankul: better to invest in sectors like telecom, gas, power, since they haven't given much returns in the past decade. Yeah. So Pankul, that's what I have in that middle, the second option that I had, which is natural resources, energy companies. So I invest in a single fund where 1/3 of the portfolio is in metal companies, 1/3 is in gas companies, 1/3 is in energy companies. This was very compelling 6 months back because oil prices also had crashed, energy prices had crashed, but in the last 6-8 months they have again recovered a lot. One will have to wait and watch. I have a smaller exposure here. See, likewise, telecom. We were one of the first investors in telecom around 2 years back in some of these stocks. But like I highlighted, the last 2 quarters, our observation is that will the price war intensify? If yes, then telecom can underperform. If the price war stops, then telecom will outperform. What will happen? Only time will say. So we have a small exposure to one telecom company. I can't give you advice specific for company by company, but we have invested in telecom. We have invested in gas companies. Power, we have not been very aggressive, though there are many money managers who are our peers who have a strong view on power sector. Our thesis is that we want to avoid it at this point in time because there is very large influence of, it's a regulated entity. So profitability is always curtailed, and the whole power chain, distribution, manufacturing, transmission, there are lots of losses, and the state governments are involved. State governments don't have cash flows to pay to the power producers, and so we don't want to take that type of uncertainty. They are very cheap from a valuation point of view, so they do tick mark the Ben Graham principle that the valuations are cheap, but they still don't tick mark the Charlie Munger principle of a quality business in some pockets, and hence we have avoided. But there are other experts who are credible experts who do feel comfortable with power, so you should, with an open mind, study that. There is a question from Dr. Aesthetic. Should you keep buying it? I think I answered that question, that should you invest when markets are falling and average your losses? Don't average your losses in bad companies. So if a company is bad, stock was 100, has come down to 80 and then 60 and then 40 and then 20. If the company is bad, never put your money because even if you average your losses, you're going to make more losses because that company does not deserve your capital. If the company is good and the price was expensive and has started correcting now, then it makes sense to average. So ultimately, you average your losses only where there is a chance of gain, not where in the future also you will continue to have losses. Then there's a question from Suhir Bhasan. Isn't the expense ratio of 1 to 2% charged by mutual funds quite significant in the long run? So see, you won't get anything free. Because we all, we feel we add value to our investors. Even to educate a country where only 2% investors are investing in compounding asset class, 98% are still in fixed deposit. We need to reach consumers, we need to educate, and we need to give them long-term compounding. Over 25 years, many of our funds have generated significantly rich compounding, and we believe that we deserve to charge a fee for that. On the other hand, costs do matter, no doubt about it. There are funds we have which charge 0.1, 0.2, 0.4, 0.7% fees also. So you have a range of products. You have a menu card of products, lower fee, moderate fee, higher fee. Funds where we believe we are adding a lot of value are typically at the higher fee bucket. Funds where we are just replicating an index are at lower fee bucket. So you can pick and choose. And today, the industry is highly competitive. There are 45 mutual funds offering you diversity of products. You have a choice as a consumer to pick and choose. And then there is this whole concept of direct plans where expenses are half, 0.7, 0.8%, zero point 0.6. Some of our funds are at 0.4, 0.6, 0.7. So there is a choice. Most people don't even know that they exist. So these options are there. Please do your research. You will definitely get various fee options. But low fee does not necessarily mean highest return. Though theoretically, every rupee of expense we charge is going to reduce your return. But then a good expert also needs to be compensated for bringing the expertise to the job. So if you believe your fund manager is generating those returns and deserves that fee, go with it. If you believe that he is not deserving, then go to the lower fee option. That choice is available to you. I hope that answers your question. How do I justify paying? Yeah, I think I have answered that question. And you also have asked that my other option is to just invest in a few stocks. Remember, many times when you buy stocks, so there are, let me give you some data point. This is a data point that came from some broking company or some demat company that 98% investors who have direct stocks in their portfolio, when you do an average of their stock holdings and their returns, those returns are less than Nifty. So having stocks by paying zero brokerage is no guarantee that you'll make money. It is important that you're owning the right stocks and the best stocks, or the stocks which really matter. So if you're able to do that, by all means, you have a choice and you should express that. Last question: is it good to buy Nasdaq ETF now or to diversify to US markets? See, Nasdaq no doubt does offer a lot of innovative businesses which India does not have, and you definitely should have international products in your portfolio. Though Nasdaq has run up a lot, I personally missed Nasdaq move myself. So what am I doing right now? My bias is to buy the US market, not Nasdaq alone, because there are enough companies in US which are in healthcare, which are in airlines, which are in manufacturing, which are in industrials, which are also generating decent profits but are available very cheap. Whereas Nasdaq companies are right now towards the higher band of its valuation. So if valuations would come down, I might go to Nasdaq. Personally, my bias today is to buy US rather than Nasdaq necessarily. And if the US stimulus, as discussed by the president there, goes through and they invest the next few trillions in actually investing in their core infrastructure, then a lot of non-tech companies will also do well, are likely to do well, and they are relatively cheaper. So like in India, where energy companies, metal companies are cheap, likewise in US, a lot of this part of the economy is cheap, is not very expensive. And when you buy the broad-based market of US, you get advantage of investing in such diverse businesses as well. So my way of investing internationally is to invest in a fund where 65 rupees goes to Indian stocks, 35 rupees goes to global stocks, because through this route, again, the tax efficiency goes up. If you directly buy a global ETF or a pure global product, your tax slabs are less efficient. But if you buy it through a hybrid equity product, 65 Indian stocks, 35 global stocks, your tax efficiency is much higher. So talk to your advisor, talk to your tax consultant, and then take that decision. I hope I've answered all your questions. Anything else? Otherwise, back to you. I'm done from my side.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kalpen. The questions are still pouring, but I think we must value time, and we already passed 15 minutes past 7, so we should close here. I think you've been very patient and you've answered all questions and shared a lot of insights today in this video, in this webinar, and I think people will have a lot to absorb and take back. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend to all of you. See you.
Thank you everyone for joining. This video will be available post the session, and we'll be doing many more sessions like these. So stay tuned and subscribe to the channel.